And that's after a jet wash. Welcome back to Tools and Track, everybody, and welcome back to the TVR chassis restoration project. In our first episode, we prepped the car to take the body off, which can be found here. In our second episode, we actually physically removed the body off, which was great fun. In this episode, we're making a list. We're going to go through all the chassis, find all the problems with it, and work out a sequence for doing all this effectively. So this is our freshly jet washed chassis. As you can see, the jet washing's made some of it shiny and done nothing for the rest. A lot of the chassis has surface rust but should be savable. We'll live to fight another day. Negative notes, even with the jet wash, a lot of bits in this chassis that just aren't cleaning up. I think we're going to have to do a full chassis strip down and send the whole frame for shot blasting and powder coating. So we're going to start at the front of the car and sweep all the way back, make a list. A, it'll give you an idea as well what you might want to consider if you're doing your own chassis resto. B, it's a good reference for me to remember what to buy. And C, it'll also show you where a lot of things should be, especially if, like me, you're probably going to buzz gun everything off and forget where everything lives. So we'll try and put as much detail into this, showing you where pipes should run, what things should be where and what shouldn't. Like I say, this has never had a chassis resto in its life, so these locations for pipes and fittings and whatnot, they'll be as it left the factory. I'm going to shout them out. My colleague over there, right mate, he's going to start writing a list. Sexy bugger that he is as well. First thing you're going to find on a chassis is your anti-roll bar. The drop links are one thing you're going to have to consider. I've got stainless steel rose jointed drop links that I made many moons ago. Haven't had a look at these, they look a wee bit dirty, but I reckon they'll clean up and they'll be safe for another use. You might want to consider new drop links for yours. The anti-roll bar does take a lot of flex, and I don't think powder coating is the best way to go with it. As you can see, the powder coating that's currently on it doesn't look great. Obviously with that rotational force, it's due to get a wee crack every now and again. We might just sand this back and paint it. Next thing on the list is the steering rack. The steering rack in this instance is original as well. There are various forum posts where some folks might change these to Subaru Impreza racks, I think. In fact, some modern ones are actually going electric. I don't have any problems with my rack at all. It feels fine, it's never given us any problems, and it's not showing any signs of leaks. Like I say, we're on a budget with this one, so I'm actually going to leave this one, give it a clean up and put it back in. At the extremities of the rack, we've got a pair of tie rod ends. They are also fairly fresh despite how they look. I actually replaced these about a couple of years ago. They buzz gun off okay, they're not going to get replaced. The next thing it comes to is the hubs. Now, again, I'm probably going to get some pelters for this, but the hubs themselves are okay. Again, I don't want to powder coat them because it's just not the best surface finish for them, I think. So we're actually just going to leave them. We'll try and clean them up as best we can. Top and ball joints in the hubs, however, they have been changed perhaps maybe when I first got the car. They're probably due another one. So, garçon, add a top and bottom ball joint kit onto the list. Moving down the chassis, the next thing we're going to hit is the engine. Now, we've had our engine in and out more times than I care to imagine, but it's going to have to come out again. We're not actually going to have to do much in the way of maintenance to this engine at all. We do have an oil leak somewhere which I'll have a look at trying to source, and annoyingly, after doing my clutch, again you can find the episode for that here, I seem to have an annoying squeal that comes when I actually disengage the thing. I reckon I've maybe got an issue with the pilot bearing. Probably just needs grease, but for the sake of storage more than anything else, once we take the engine and the box out, I'm going to split them and just have a wee look at that. One thing you might want to consider doing when you take the engine out is obviously replacing all the support bushes for the engine and the gearbox. We did this during the clutch, but certainly if you've not done it yet, add that to shopping list if you're bringing an engine out. It's a nightmare to do otherwise. Towards the rear of the engine, these brake lines and clutch line are going to be due for a replacement. I'm pretty sure if you're taking the body off the car, they're due for replacement regardless. It's so easy to do your brake lines with all of this access, it's almost rude not to. This big fitting guy, that goes to your clutch. The lower of these three remaining ones goes to the rear of the car, and the two upper ones go to the front wheels, left and right. Let's continue further back. Okay, now we're at the rear of the car, it's time to talk about more bushes. So, the good part that the rear bush bones have over the front is there's no actual mechanical links here. It is all bushes, so we're going to add, I think, a full poly bush kit to the shopping cart. Full poly bush kit, please. Yes. Once we get them on, we'll obviously have to think about the hub. I'm not going to be able to attack this now because there's something else I'm going to have to add on to the shopping list. A substantial 41mm socket, and we'll come to that in a wee moment. I've done one of the 4 CV joints in here because I thought that might be related to the clunk. There's no reason for me not to do the other three. In fact, it'd be pretty remiss not to do it, simply because, well, we broke the seal anyway and we'll have it all out. Garçon, 3 108mm CV joints from a Ford Granada, please. This handring is shocking, man. Once the shafts are out, we're also going to have to look at the diff. Now, my initial fear was that we're starting to see slop in the diff. I've had a shake of this chassis, moved all the shafts in and out, and it's tight, really tight. It's actually fine. I'm amazed that it's holding up as well as it is. Nonetheless, we're going to have to take the diff out, solely because it's held in with poly bushes. Oh, ticked. Add diff poly bushes. Be aware if you're buying a polybush kit for your TVR, there's a pretty good chance the diff bushes won't be included in it. Most polybush kits only cover suspension. It's a worthwhile addition if we're stripping down the whole chassis. You've got 2 bushes in the front, 1 really annoying guy in the back that we'll need to change. Handbrake cables, they look okay, however give yours a check. If you've had issues with your handbrake, there's a pretty good chance the cables are going to be due a replacement. This is a very easy time to hit them. Fuel lines are obviously something that's a bit of a perishable item, so mine look okay. Well, the rubber ones do. The steel ones are starting to look a bit tired, but nonetheless, every single line that carries fuel in some way, shape or form, we're going to change, just because it's easy to do. Add that to the shopping list as well, big boy. Let's not forget, inline fuel filter. He's a minute! I feel I should also make a wee correction to my earlier video. There's a little swan neck that goes over this part of the chassis that goes into the fuel tank. Now that was one of the first lines we cut that goes into the fuel pump. It follows the fuel pump up and goes to a filter here. My good God, that is due for a change. And then from there it goes down to steel lines and runs all the way to the front of the car, up and into the manifold. This other line here that I thought was a return, which comes up, around the diff, down, and then follows the pressure line all the way to the car, actually runs all the way to the front, up around here, and then across to this part, which I snipped. This normally sits under the radiator and then runs up and into a charcoal canister that lives around about here. That is not the return line, so my apologies for that. The fuel return line, in fact, runs down the opposite side of the car, following the rear brake lines, and all the way along here on the upper chassis, drops down at the diff, and then pops out here. Remember that little tricky line in the breakdown episode? That's what this is. We will be replacing all of those. One last thing, obviously, to add to the shopping list, somewhat crucially, we're going to have to chop and weld out parts of the chassis that are rotten. As luck would have it, this is a fairly common problem, so there are places where you can get an outrigger kit. That is, all of the extremities of the chassis that you just chop out and weld in. So, if you wouldn't mind, that covers just about everything that I can find that's a consumable part. For the moment, that's a good starter for 10. You can go make the coffees. I'm going to go start stripping the front of the car. Right, so that's the wishbones off. Our next task is going to have to be removing the steering rack. Now this is a power steering rack, which not all Chimaeras have. So what we've done is obviously we need to take the input shaft out that goes from the steering column to the steering rack. That was fairly easy, it's a 13mm nut and bolt. We need to look at getting the rack itself out. Now that's got to come sideways through the frame. What to do is there's a return line with a Jubilee clip, slacken that off, burst the return line out the way. Next up, you'll have a 19mm banjo bolt that holds the pressure side in to the rack, and then you're onto the 4 bolts that hold it onto the frame. You shouldn't have to do the high pressure lines that go from the rack input to the rack. We'll see. I don't know. Each car might be different. Fingers crossed. Maybe the other way. He says, alright, plan B. it come out from above. The love from above. Here we go. Wait a minute. I'll just get the crossbar out. It's got to come out anyway because we'll take the engine off. Now will you come out without a fight? Good lads. That's the front end, well, the suspension side of it stripped down now. We've got the steering rack out, we've got all the front wishbones and whatnot stripped off, and we're just at a point now where we're ready to lift the engine out. However, we can't do that because we still need the engine in place for something else. That is to help lock the back wheels. For us to break the rear hubs off, I want to get a 41mm socket on to gun off those shaft bolts. The problem is, I can probably jerry-rig the handbrake, but I want to have first gear as well, just to lock everything off and give as much thump as I can. Let me think, what else could we do? I mean, we can start cleaning up these front wishbones, that's a shout. We still need to strip off the upper and lower ball joints. So let's get them in a vise, crack on with that. This is the lower wishbone, which we have stuck in the vise. Now we're going to see if these unbelievably crusty looking bolts are going to come out. Place bets now. Not even going to use WD-40 in this. That is how optimistic I am. One stout chap later and the bad boy's out. It's quite annoying because it actually feels pretty good. There's no great amount of slop or play in it. But crustier than the hull of a Titanic, so it's getting replaced. Removing hardware from the top wishbones is considerably easier than the bottom. You see there's a wee link spar that holds the left and the right part of the arm together, and you're looking at a couple of 17mm. Break them off and your top joint comes out. Bit of the old WD. Thank you. Now you'll note that in here there is a caster adjustment shim. If you're taking these off the old ones, try and remember the position for putting them back together. It'll make life a lot easier when it comes to setting up your car again. That is, if setting up your car is something you're interested in. If you want to just snake down the road with absolutely no cares in the world, just chuck them in an end direction. Caster shim. Also very, very crusty. As you can see, your top adjust has got quite a bit of range for camber, but trust me, you only need the one setting, and that's the correct one. One quick time hop later, and we have now a 41mm socket. That's a monster, isn't it? So what we've done is I've had to reinstate the handbrake lever so that we can lock the back wheels, ready to break them off. Now, I'll make a wee confession here. These wheels were still on the ground and chopped at the back so that I could get a monkey bar on it and just break these just enough so that I know that they move. We've now jacked it up because obviously we'll be bringing out the diff and the shafts and everything else. Next step is going to be with the car in gear and the handbrake on. We're going to gun these off and then we're going to start breaking everything else off. It's time to get the ugly dog out. While we're here with the big gun, we'll just take the wheels off too. I need to find somewhere for these to live. So we need to resist temptation to just start ripping off all the stuff that's really easy to access. Engine's still in, diff's still in. We need to take off all the remaining bolts that are going to be locked and need to be locked. So the next thing you want to do is take out the drive shafts. Now these have never been off, and being with a due to where I live in the car, they're full of quite a bit of schmutz. Which is actually not that bad a thing, because the schmutz means there's no rust. With schmutz removed, we can get a socket in, and all we're going to do at the moment is crack them, because we still have the prop shaft to diff bolts that will need a locked drive line to break. So I just want to make sure everything can come out, so that when it comes time for everything to come out, we can do it all at once. Yeah, the hub side bolts will be tricky to see, but you can still get to them easy enough. Ooh! She's toyed. Diff bolts are pretty simple. A pair of 14 mils. You can get them in and then just slacken off. Once all the prop to diff bolts are out, the diff itself is pretty easy to remove. Just slides off the spline on the tail, output from the gearbox, and then find a big enough gap. There we go. Not to show off or anything, but in the middle of a global pandemic, I've got one of these, and I'm just going to slide it over the end of the output for the box. That'll stop any gearbox oil leaking when we remove it from the car. All we're doing here is getting the shaft loose. We'll need to take the upper wishbone off to clear it. Now it's time to take the wishbones off. Every other suspension bolt you need to deal with back here is a 16 mil. Done the handbrake completely, so I've stripped off the lever assembly. That gives us all the slack we need in these, and to get them off here, just pop them. This will never happen unless you've got slack in the cables. The handbrake removed, I've taken off the wee centre pivot. That's just a split pin that pulls it out. And then it's a case of unravelling all the cable. Thunk. Out you come, the cheeky little monkey. The fuel pump, or at least my fuel pump, is held on with two 8mm bolts to the chassis. Yeah. That actually stands down a lot. Right, we're back on wobble cam again. So we're just about to take the last of the brake lines off. You need a wee 10mm to undo this T-piece fitting in the back. And I've just cracked it off with a 14mm on the front. And that's the whole line from the front to back off. We're going to retain this because as crusty as it looks, it's, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. We'll obviously replace the lines to the left and the right. So once that's out the way, we'll take the front brake lines out when the engine's out, because they do lace in quite a bit and there's no real need to go buggering with it because they won't get in the way. They'll be the last things, I guess. So it's time to start thinking about the diff. Off. I don't know if this will be right or wrong, but I am going for the inner 4 bolts that hold the mounts for the carrier onto the diff. And it goes without saying, these are going to be tight. Well, this is fun. So I've got these bolts out, a wee word of warning. These are threaded here as well as with a wee lock nut in the back. So see, once you crack these, take the nut off and it'll make taking the whole thing out a whole lot easier. So we've still got it in, obviously, in all 4 with threads, just to hold the diff. We have also stuck a jack under, just to take the weight in it, because obviously if we're going to take these brackets off, it's likely to fall. 16mm for the outer parts of these brackets, and then another 16mm holding that bobbin on in the back, and she'll fall. Just before we go, I'm also going to rattle these two, I think 13mm, and take the speed sensor out the way completely, just to stop it getting smacked on anything. two 13mm off the top and the bottom of the bobbin. As soon as the weight's off, they'll lift out. I've also taken out the 17mm that hold this support bracket. That's gone. I've taken off the 17mm nuts that hold them in. I've kept the bolts so it can rest on it. And obviously inside the mounts, I have taken off the 17mm that hold the mount onto the engine. I think I'm also going to take off the starter motor, quite simply because it's probably going to clip the frame. Less talking and more lifting, I guess, eh? Back ends up. Ah! Tesco value cat litter to the rescue. We're now at a bare chassis. We've got some things to do to the engine, but obviously that's going to get chucked down the back. That can get done when the chassis is away getting powder coated. This is a good time to wrap up the episode. Hope you found it useful. If you have, please do give us a subscribe and a like. It does make it all worth it, believe me. Something needs to make this all worth it. Next episode we're going to do is obviously the welding repairs to the chassis, and we're going to get a wee bit creative with it. Stay tuned, you'll find out what I mean.